Hello, dear students. I am Dr.S. Pagar, Associate Professor, Department of Geography. I welcome all of you in this online lecture series on behalf of Maratha Vidya Prasarak Samajas, Charity Arts, Beach Commerce, and AM Science, popularly known as KTHM College, Nasik. Dear student, in this S.Y.B.Sc class, Geography paper first, that is environmental geography, and we are discussing the chapter number 3, that is environmental problem. Dear student, this is our lecture number 20 of this subject. The title of this chapter is environmental problem, and today we are going to discussing very important subtopic of this chapter, that is meaning and definition of biodiversity. Dear student, in previous lecture we had discussed in detail about ozone depletion. Its meaning means what do you mean by ozone depletion, the causes of the ozone depletion, effects of the ozone depletion, and lastly we had already discussed about how to control depletion of the ozone layer. Dear student, for today's lecture we have a very simple objective, that is to understand meaning and definition of biodiversity. So therefore, let us start about the biodiversity. So biodiversity is the amount of variety of life on the surface. Biodiversity is the foundation for the human health. You know that student, the human health is totally depend on the ecological balance or the environmental balance. If the environmental balance or the ecological balance is disturbed, then definitely it directly affects on the human health. Therefore, the biodiversity is very important for us. The biodiversity describes the richness and the variety of life on the Earth's surface. It's the most complex and the important feature of our planet, that is the planet Earth. Without biodiversity, life would not sustain. Therefore, it's very important. If you're talking about the global biodiversity, then for your kind information, the tropical forests are very important for us because this tropical forest ecosystem cover less than 10% part of the Earth's surface and contain about 90% of the world species. Means here we have a large biodiversity we observe in particularly tropical forest ecosystem. Therefore, these forests are very important for us. So let us discuss the meaning of biodiversity. Dear student, the biodiversity word, it is a combination of the two words, that is bio and diversity. Bio stands for life and diversity stands for variation. If you keep the meaning of the both in together, then what does it mean? The meaning of bio and diversity, it is a variety of various living factor or the organism that you observe on the Earth's surface. The biodiversity, this word is a short form of two words. That bio here, bio stands for biological and diversity means diversity. Diversity means what? The biodiversity is a short form of the two words, that is biological and diversity. So therefore, it's very important. If you see the detailed meaning of this word, what do you mean by biodiversity? It refers to all the variety of life that can be found on the earth, as well as to the community that they form and the habitats in which they live. So when you are talking about all the variety of life, here particularly when we are talking about the variety of life, that time it includes plants, animal, fungi, and the microorganism. So you know that student, the plants are a multicellular organism. They play very important role as a producer in the ecosystem. It includes the trees, flowers, or the so many things that we included in the plants. If you're talking about the animal, a living creature that can move and feel. Animal is sometimes used to mean only creature with the warm bloods. All animals have definite, safe, and usually limited growth. If you're talking about the microorganism, means what? An organism that can seen only through microscope, like a bacteria, like a protozoa, algae, virus, fungi. These all are a part of microorganism, and we already discussed detail in our ecosystem. They play a very important role as a decomposer in the ecosystem. So this is about biodiversity. If we see the meaning of definition of biodiversity, then the first let us see some more about the term biodiversity. This was a term the first time introduced by the Walter G. Rosen in 1985. He was a very famous scholar of America, and he written a lot of literature on the books related to the biodiversity. And in his book, first time he introduced the words the biodiversity. It is a variety of life on the earth in all its forms and all the interaction that included as a part of the biodiversity. It is a refer to the variability among the plants, animal and microorganism, the species. Just we discussed in last slide. When we are talking about the words biodiversity, that time I already explained this thing. So dear student, the all animals, then we have a microorganism, then we have the flowers or the butterfly or the lot of species that we observe on the surface. It includes the birds, then the various animals like a monkey, lot of we have the carnivorous or the lot of animals we already discussed they play very important role as a consumer in ecosystem. That all type of we observe. It may be the primary consumer, it may be secondary consumer, it may be tertiary consumer, or the lot of consumer, that all included as a part of the biodiversity. Then, dear student, about the definition, let us discuss the two or the three definitions very important about biodiversity. The first definition is given by C.J. Barrow. He given in his definition, according to Barrow, biodiversity is the diversity of the different species together with the genetic variation within each species in given area or the ecosystem. Dear student, here two things are very important in this definition. The diversity of the different species. You know that we just mentioned that it may be the animal species or the plant species or the micro species, that they're everywhere you observe the diversity of the species. And one thing that with the genetic variation is very important. In this definition, the more emphasis is given in the genetic variation within the space. You know that we observe this type of genetic variation in the human being also. We have the lot of the type of human being, the nature, their color, their height, their knowledge, everything is we have the variation. Even in the India also we observe this type of the genetic variation. If you're talking about the world, in Africa we have the different type of the human being, in Europe, in the Asian country, and in the North American country. Everywhere you will observe there is a genetic variation in the human being also. The second definition is given by United Nations Environmental Program. When this program was organized in 1992, that time they given a very simple definition of the biodiversity. The biodiversity is the totality of genes, species, and the ecosystem in a region. It means a very simple difference. It includes the all type of the biodiversity that are observed on the surface in every ecosystem region. It may be the geographical region, or maybe any small region like a pond, or it may be the large region like a ocean, or you can say the sea, or everywhere. Especially in the forest area, we observe this biodiversity in the large scale, like Amazon, we have the Congo basin in India. We have the lot of basin we observe in the India. It may be the Ganga basin or the Krishna, Kaveri, Godavari. Everywhere you can observe this type of the biodiversity. And third, a very simple definition: the existence of number of different kinds of animal and the plants which together make a good and healthy environment, and this environment is known as this type of the different kinds of the animal and plants, if you keep together, then this type of the life or the existence of the animal and plants as a together known as a biodiversity. So dear student, this was about definition. If we're talking of the type of biodiversity, we can classify biodiversity into the three classes. The first is species diversity, second is genetic diversity, and third is very important, that is the ecological diversity. The species diversity refer to the variety of different type of species found in a particular area. It is a biodiversity at the most basic level. It includes the all species ranging from animals to different type of the microorganism. And second type of biodiversity is that is genetic biodiversity. It refers to the variation among the genetic resources of the organism. Every individual of the particular species different from each other in their genetic constitution. That is why every human looks different from each other. Similarly, there is a different variation in the same species like rice, wheat, maize, barley, and even the grapes. You can see in this picture, you can see that it is genetic diversity. In this picture, we have the grapes, but then if you see the color and their shape is totally different from each other. So this is known as the genetic diversity. And third diversity is the ecological diversity. This type of the diversity you observe in the ecosystem. And the ecosystem, you know that is a collection of living and non-organism and their interaction with each other. Ecological biodiversity refers to the variation in the plants and the animal species living together and connected by food chain and the food web in the ecosystem. It is a diversity observed among the different ecosystem in the region. Diversity in the different ecosystem, it may be like a desert ecosystem, we have the different diversity. In the rainforest forest ecosystem, we have different biodiversity. And even if we're talking about the equatorial region, monsoon region, tundra region, everywhere you will observe the different ecological diversity. So this is about the type of biodiversity. If you see the global biodiversity, then for your kind information, it is a measure of biodiversity on the planet Earth and is defined as the total variability of life forms. It may be about 100 million living organisms in which only 1.25 million are till detected or the categories by the human being. It may be possible in future on the basis with help of the science and technological progress, human being can be identified remaining all organisms. If you talk in the scientists have reported that about 1.75 billion different global species, and it includes 950,000 species of insects, 270,000 species of plants, it means trees, 19,000 species of the fish, and 9,000 species of the birds, and 4,000 species of the mammals that we observe on the surface. This is about the, if you're talking about the total that species we observe on the surface, about half of the species of the world are found in tropical forests. Therefore, these tropical forests are very important for human beings as we concern with the ecological balance or keeping the ecological balance on the surface. At least 40,000 different plant species live in the Amazon rainforest of the South Africa. So, you know that the whole tropical forest is very important for the ecological balance. But if we're talking the specific spot that in tropical forest, the Amazon rainforests are very important that are located in the, especially in the Brazil. Here we have this type of the Amazon rainforest. So in this this area is very important for us to maintain the ecological balance of the earth. So therefore, it is one of the most biological diverse region on the planet Earth. So therefore, it's a very important area if we are talking about the biodiversity of the world. Dear student, if you see this is the chart here. We have that was the survey was conducted in 2008 and 9. During that time, that was conducted by the and they identify on that particular year. These numbers are given here in the bacteria. The numbers were 4,000. That is the protogons of the algae or the protozoa included. It was the 80,000. The animals, the both type of the animals here, we have 52,000 and 1,272,000. Then fungi we have 72,000. The plants we have 270,000, and total described species was 1,750,000, and overall it was near about the 14 million. So therefore, this indicate that we have the lot of variety or the biodiversity we observe on the surface, or it exists on the surface. Then if we're talking about the words, so up to this research, the whatever the human being, they conducted various survey to identify the biodiversity hotspot in the world. That time, up to date, we have already able to identify the 12 mega diversities countries in the world. The first is Mexico. Here we have the Mexico, then Colombia, then Ecuador. Here we have the Ecuador, then Peru. Here we have the Peru. Brazil. I just mentioned about the Brazil. Then Zaire in South Africa. Madagascar is here. China is here, very close to India. Then yes, India is also one of country where we observe the great biodiversity, that the mega biodiversity here. And then we have the Malaysia. Then here also we have the Indonesia, and lastly we have the Australia. So these are the 12 countries in the world where we have identified the mega diversity country. So in these all these 12 countries are very important as a global ecological balance. If we're talking of the India, in India also we have the three major biodiversity hotspot in India. The first, of course, the Himalaya. Here we have the Himalayan range. Then we have the second is the Western Ghat. It's very important. Western Ghat is very important, and some part of the Western Ghat is located in the Maharashtra also. Then we have the Indo-Burma. Here we have the Indo-Burma region, and also the few spot of the biodiversity we also observed at the Sundarland, which is located in the western West Bengal. So therefore, this all region is very important if with respect to the biodiversity spot of the hotspot of India. Dear student, this was about today's lecture. In next lecture, we are going to discuss very important, it's subtopic of the same chapter, that is loss of biodiversity. What do we mean by loss of biodiversity? What are the reasons of loss of biodiversity, and what are the effects that we observe on that surface of biodiversity? So, thank you. Goodbye.